is quite a bit different.
Okay.
So we will remove the old one and insert these new ones into the presentation, but I did want you to see that the number of calls was slightly different than what I had presented. So
So-
the integrity of the data was very important to them and to us.
So, when's the due date or the deadline for them to turn in, a new contract for the upcoming year? If they're going to do, or is the contract just staying the same?
Right now, we're planning on the contract staying the same, and
Okay.
we give that to them to sign, and they take it to their boards, and so we usually have that in place shortly after the start of the fiscal year, July 1, so that they can get their payments,
Right.
fairly quickly.
So the contract renewal's in July sometime?
I think it matches the fiscal year, so it would terminate June 30th.
Okay.
Yes, so the contracts have been revised slightly for the new year, but just some minor updates due to, change in circumstances. So, they will be on the board's next agenda, your next agenda, June 21st, for you to review and approve. And then they would go to the fire departments for them to sign before the end of June, ideally. But
Right.
if not, it would be soon after July 1st. They've already gotten a copy to look at and provide feedback.
And the third piece of the slide then is the county EMS calls. And the intention of sharing the data for the calls was not to compare the VFDs with EMS, but to help you understand why the EMS budget has substantially been increasing over the years. It is in proportion to the number of calls that they are responding to, and that number has significantly increased during the COVID pandemic due to the fact that they were covering all of the calls that, some of our first responders through the VFDs had covered pre-COVID. So those are the call volume data. And I'm sorry that we're not able to share the screen. I think IT is working on that. Any questions related to VFD call data? Do you want to entertain audience questions?
Thank you, Charlie. The question I had is, as I have taken advantage of ambulatory services and it was charged, how much of that is picked up by insurance companies, et cetera? And what's the real number? How do you guys operate here?
Happy to sit down and talk with you about the EMS budget. There's revenues I can share with you and
Okay, well, that's
expenditures,
maybe more
both.
so for those sitting here that need to dig into it. Thank you for entertaining my question.
Okay, the other item that we had received some questions on, Commissioner Gentry and I had been talking about the airport budget. And so I have a summary handout to give you, and I can also project it when I have that ability. Oh, looks like I do. Okay, I'll give you that, but
Very
if you could
cool.
share that. So here's my airport operations, and I'm giving you the handout because there's a lot of numbers to digest. And what we've tried to do is just give you a one-pager on the airport operating budget, since there's been some questions about that. So your expenditures is the first line there, the operating expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Then below that, we have our general services department expenses, who serve as the maintenance and support for our airport facility. And then I have a total cost line there on what it's costing for the airport operations from the county. We do have a lease with Red Mountain Aviation, a 10-year lease, and so I'm showing the next line of your lease revenue. And then below that is the total net gain, or the quote-unquote profit, if you will,
Right.
that the airport has generated. The next line is indirect costs, and I only am able to show 2 years of this because we are waiting for your fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21 indirect costs to be completed due to the delay of the audit due to the cyber event. So I'll have those numbers as soon as that's completed and we can fill in the blanks. But you basically are having to then subtract out your indirect costs from that profit number, and that tells you where the airport stands in terms of, you know, how it's doing. And I think that's been asked a couple of times. Well, are we generating money? Are we losing money? And you do have to take into account the costs of supporting the airport. And so for 19 and 18, you can see that we had a loss of 70,000 and almost 82,000 when you take those into account. Now, this
Right.
is not all in one place in the budget, and I think that's really been, you know, some of the frustration is that we have to follow general accounting standards and show our revenues and our expenditures separately. But I can tell you where in the budget you can find some of these numbers if, if you'd like to look. So the airport expenditure budget page is on page 89, and your revenues
Mhm.
is on page 34. I think it's about the, let me see what line down it is for the airport lease. So it's maybe around, I don't know, 7 or 8. The
Yeah.
8 line down,
Mhm.
airport lease. So
Mhm.
that's where we're getting these numbers, but we wanted to give you just sort of a general one-pager so that you can have a better ease of understanding. So if there are any other budgets that you'd like us to try to simplify and put on a one-pager, we're happy to do that, because it is hard to find things.
Well, it
in
is,
here.
and I went, and Amy, you could, if you explained this beautifully to me yesterday, would you mind sharing it with, you did, would you please share how you explained it to me, the indirect costs, how that works? And I think everybody got a copy, Heidi sent a copy of there's a whole different booklet of expenses that have to be divvied up. Would you please repeat what you said to me yesterday?
Sure.
And probably easier to come to the mic,
Okay.
Amy, just since we're also streaming.
Sure. Each year, we're required to, contract with a third party to do our indirect cost audit. The reason for that is that we don't have an in-house, audit department that sometimes for some municipalities and counties,
Yeah.
some of the bigger units, have their own internal audit department that can do this indirect cost audit calculation. But we don't. So we hire someone to do that for us. And basically, they're taking costs such as, in general services case, general services pays for, they have labor that they go and they help to maintain the airport facility. You have information technology that also plays a part, some part in the airport. The audit that we perform, that we pay for, the indirect cost auditors can take a piece of that they do some calculation that they say would apply to the airport. So all of these costs they're directly costed in the places in our budget where they're actually happening, where they're actually being incurred. But you don't get a sense for, such as in the airport, you don't see in the airport department a line item for audit cost, a line item for general maintenance, a line item for, information technology.
Is it
That's,
because we're just too small, or is it just in general across the board this is legislated this way?
This is the way local government's budgets
Okay.
have to be.
Sorry you
Yes.
have to train everybody
No,
up here,
No,
but
that's-
this is
that's
important
fine.
for me
The-
to know.
So the indirect cost audit will capture all of those costs. It's just that you can't see it in the financial system that we maintain because we can't present it that way. So anytime that you have a question about how some department is operating, like where do they stand, then we have to go to that indirect cost audit and capture those costs as well, because if you don't, you're not getting the full picture of how much it costs to run that facility.
The whole picture,
Yeah.
the whole
Exactly.
picture.
Yeah, so
Everything, yeah, and so.
that's really what this
This
serves.
is super helpful, so if I ever have any questions, I can get something like this. I can
Yes.
find out what all these soft costs are.
You can get
because-
that on just about any
Anything.
department function that we have, we can provide that information so
That's
that you can see
excellent.
the bottom line.
Okay.
Question, is there a
Sure.
time frame when this audit will be completed?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah. Well, I think you saw in the email I sent out that the latest holdup is the tourism audit. We have to have numbers from tourism to have ours completed.
Ours is basically completed, except for the information that we need to drop in from the TDA's audit. And until we get that, we cannot submit it to the state.
Do they need help?
The
The TDA?
I
they
do
need
not
help
know.
with it?
They have a different set of auditors. They hire a different audit firm. They don't use our auditors. They hire their own. And so we're dependent upon them to finish this audit. And I really don't know why that's delayed. It's usually completed in the fall. But I think that it probably has something to do with the fact that their accountant is associated with
City.
what's his name? Dan Craig.
Okay.
And Dan Craig has been dealing with the fallout from the cyber event for the city. And I think that caused the delay for him to finish doing what he needed to do for the TDA's audit. And so he's done his part. It's really now in the hands of the auditors for the TDA, and we're just waiting for them to let us know that it's done, and we can then submit
Put
ours.
the data, okay.
Yeah. It's been frustrating because we usually present the audit at your board retreat.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that we're quite
It's
a bit.
very frustrating. We're very glad and thankful that we've been able to actually get the audit done, considering the year that we had with the cyber and some of the difficulty of getting the information. So we had done our part and gotten it ready, and except for this, we didn't realize this was gonna be an issue for the TDA's
So we
audit.
won't know the full cost of this, of the cyber attack until the end of this year probably then, the full cost of everything that's happened.
I think we're close to capturing those costs. I know that there was some left for IT to finish up, but I think that's very close to being
Right.
recognized.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
It's wrapped up.
But TDA is well aware of the holdup here. I mean,
We've been in touch
I-
with Dan.
okay. that's
We've called their director too, to try and get in touch with their auditors to let them know that and our auditors have been in touch with their auditors, and so there's a lot of conversation going on, but we just haven't been able to get, expected completion date from them, which is frustrating.
Frustrating.
Thanks
Yeah,
for doing your part.
sure.
So is there only one full-time employee with the TDA?
To my knowledge, there's only one,
Yeah.
and they'll,
Volunteers?
no,
No.
she's a paid employee. Mhm.
She's new,
She is. She hasn't been with them for but about a year now.
close.
And so she runs the whole thing.
And she's new.
She is. She's only been there a year.
She's fresh out of college
Mhm,
too.
she
so it's-
is,
It's
uh-huh.
a new gig for
Yeah.
her. But that's not an excuse, but so I think it's more in the hands of the auditors.
It is in between the auditors, and I think the Dan Craig. I think
Right.
that was just an issue that came up that he didn't anticipate. So
Why did they get a different auditor than what we use? Is there a reason for that?
they did. I think they did go out for bid.
Oh, okay.
Just like we would
Gotcha,
do,
okay.
and they had someone to. Dan was able to come in under, so he was the most competitive bid, so they chose him.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, they chose him as their accountant. They chose another firm that did come in under bid.
Gotcha. Okay. So on the airport lease, it's a 10-year lease. Is it a standing flat fee lease every year, or is it a cost adjusted every year?
It's a little bit of both. I can pull the lease to give you the details on that.
I know, I just noticed that it looked like it was a solid, it went from 89 to 90, it's 90,000, so.
Yeah.
How do,
It's
how,
gone up.
how do we raise revenues at the airport?
So
How do
it's
we do
dependent upon traffic, cause we're getting a portion of the, the fuel that they
Mhm.
sell. Part of, the revenue is based on fuel sales. There's a whole number of, of items. So when they have the corporate hangar and they're charging, lease fees for that, or they have, their tea hangers are full, we're getting a portion of those. So it's dependent upon, the air industry as well. But I'm happy to pull that lease for you. I can speak to it once
I
we
was
look at
just-
it. It's been a while since
I was
I've
looking for,
eyeballed it.
I didn't see airport fees, that's why I was wondering. I could,
Um,
that's, there's just
I
so
think
much I've
it's just
probably missed.
captured in their lease, actually. I don't
Not
think
in
we
here,
have a
okay.
separate fee. You had asked about fees. I don't know what you wanted to discuss specifically, but you can find the fees from pages 14 to 26 in
Mhm.
your budget book.
Yeah, I was just, I was seeing where there's adopted fees from 21 and there's recommended fees. There's a lot of stuff that's not changed.
Right.
There are some things that are changed. There's, new fees for animal control. Person Industries, they used to have a fee for processing light bulbs and for the residents or for the customers to do the work at Person Industries. They used to charge per load for box trucks and stuff, and now there's no charge for this year for anything for Person Industries. They're not charging for anything.
It says no change.
No
But they
change,
would
okay.
still be charging
Alright.
those same fees that they've been charging.
Okay, and so now, alrighty, so video services we're adding for the Kirby, that's cool. Conditional rezoning request, $350 plus $10 an acre. Is this for, did I miss something somewhere in planning? It's a new fee for planning.
I see.
Conditional rezoning request, it's a new one.
I'm not
Looks like there's an
sure.
application
That-
fee for
that-
condition.
Yes, that's because of the change to 160D and the terminology that's being used in the new ordinance.
Okay.
That's driven by the state level.
Okay.
So the fees had to be updated to reflect the changes in 160D.
Okay, then we have new lab services changes, and we dropped fees for influenza shots. I mean, overall, I don't know, every $5 adds up or down somewhere, that's why I'm going through this kind of thing, We removed telehealth charges, 3653, so we removed these charges, these digital charges from the budget stuff. And we removed a shingle shot charge.
So much of the changes related to health department are coming from the state.
Okay.
We're sort of at the state's mercy to determine.
So when these charges are removed, it's a state, we have no,
Most
we have
of the
no
time.
say, okay.
But I will confirm with Janet that that's the case
Okay.
with these.
And in some cases, they have new names, that has shifted some in the health department, some of the codes that they're using.
And then we have a whole bunch of new fees here under, compliant investigations, complaint investigations, sprinkler
sorry,
system.
where are you?
This is page 24. There's a whole bunch of new fees there. This is on fines, under fines, we've got, burning without a permit, first, second offenses, burning without a permit, locked, blah, 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 overcrowding, all these were removed. I mean, burning without a permit on a commercial, your second offense was $1,000, that was in 21, and that's been removed, so I'm just wondering why we removed these fees for these
Okay.
violations.
These are fire marshal,
Mhm. Are they again?
fees, so I'm happy to bring him and
Okay, I'm
answer
just
those.
curious
not
as to
really
why we're
sure.
removing that much in fees. And then there's a whole bunch of them for sprinkler system not complying to codes, there's a bunch of new stuff over here, so I don't know what the offset is there.
Yeah,
but
I'm
kind of-
seeing the new. Am I missing the?
So
The ones
now,
above it,
the
when
burning
there's,
without the
I
permit,
see.
those are now reflected as illegal open burning under the complaint investigations.
so they just
I think-
moved them?
Yeah, I think it was, again, a change in terminology.
May I interject?
Okay.
I was burning some trash on some county property, actually lumber from a
construction job I was doing, and the fire inspector, I guess at the time, it's been 4 or 5 years ago, he came and told me that I had to get a permit in the county now. When did we change that?
You do have to have a permit to do a burn.
I mean, he said even leaves in a ditch, you're supposed to have a
Yeah.
permit.
You are.
When did we change this?
I think it's
Anybody
been
know?
on the books for a
For a
long
while.
time.
Really?
Just that it's-
I've been in violation all my life.
Yeah, pretty much.
Whoa.
Most people in the county are too.
He didn't write me up, so.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
That's just kind of notice those
I can get some
things.
clarification on the fire marshal fees for
Okay.
you.
Looks like a reclassification of a lot of
Right.
what they're naming it, but I just,
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else related to fees that you'd like more information on?
not
No?
me,
Okay.
no, just,
And the last piece was PCC. There were some questions about enrollment data, and Dr. Senegal has asked for us to submit questions in writing to send to her, and she will respond back to us.
okay, well, I was able
that
to
way.
pull some stuff up, and, I've got some, and the reason I'm just asking, cause I don't know, I'm supportive of advanced technologies. I'm not trying to kill a good idea, but I've got some questions about the fact that Piedmont Community College currently serves 1,287 students, 26% are full-time. And basically, the population of Piedmont Community College has declined by 12% over the last 5 years, which is basically her tenure. Student-teacher ratio is 12-1, it's decreased from 13-1. Piedmont Community College diversity score is .56, less than the state average at .63. So I'm just kind of looking at the fact that we've got a community college that has gone down in people that are attending.
Mhm.
There are 338 full-time students, 949 part-time students, and we're getting ready to spend $30 million potentially on a new education facility, and I'm like, well, if we don't have enough people going to the community college, are we gonna draw people here? If they're already not here and we do have programs in place, it might not be the most modern facility, but we've got these programs there, we've got these classes, we've got these, systems available for people to take advantage of, but we're losing people. So I just wanna make sure if we're gonna spend that much money, are we gonna be able to really attract it based on the fact that we've been losing people for 5 years to the community college? That concerns me from a fiscal standpoint.
Okay.
A couple of meetings ago, I asked the question to her what the maximum enrollment was, and she didn't have an answer,
That's right. She was gonna get back to us. And
and she
didn't.
never did.
Okay, I'll remind her.
Okay.
And the college completion rate here is 26%. The average graduate earning is 24,600, and they're all coming out, whether it's part-time or dropouts, with anywhere between $7,300 and $7,500 in debt. And 61% of the students receive financial aid, but they're coming out with $7,500, $7,300 in school debt, even though they're getting financial aid. And the completion rate for the programs is still 26%. So here again, I'm just concerned, if we're gonna spend the money, I wanna make sure we do it really, really well.
Okay.
Mr. Steep has a question?
Thank you, Gordon. I didn't see $30 million in the budget. I didn't see the PCC, Advanced Technology Center earmarked in anywhere in the budget.
That's right.
Is that an ad? Is that, did I not look at it correctly?
No, you're correct. It was requested in the capital improvement plan for $25 million, and I did not fund that. We had a conversation that said, if we're gonna take on something this big, right now is not the time to put in $25 million. First of all, we can't afford that. We were developing our debt model, and so, what we heard Dr. Senegal say was that she needed to find a site, and then the next step would be some engineer drawings, some construction plans. And she would like us to fund those construction plans, but we don't have a site confirmed still. So my conversation with her is that when she gets a little further along in this process, come back to the board with an ask for the portion that the county would need to fund. You don't want to fund a $25 million project if she's raising millions of dollars and the county portion may only be 10 million, which is another number that she has asked for at some point. So I think we're just sort of in a holding pattern in terms of what to fund related to the ATC at this point, until I have a better sense of how much money would we want to tie up. Any project in the $10 million range is a financing for us.
Mm-hmm.
We would not be approved for a financing without a better plan for how that money would be spent. And at this point, we don't know, because we don't even know where this is going to be built.
Was there a feasibility study done?
There was, and I'm sorry I hadn't responded
Yeah.
to your email about that. We funded a feasibility study in the fiscal year 1920 CIP.
Mm-hmm.
We funded that for $54,000, and the next year added another $8,700 to that. So we have already made some level of investment, and I have an executive summary of that study that I can share with you all, so you can see what that recommended. But I also heard Dr. Senegal say that it was outdated now and needed to be updated. So I'm not 100% certain, that the costs are valid or accurate at this point
Are
with
we
that
talking
study.
in terms of building costs? Probably not, if that's what she's talking about.
I think
but
that's what she's talking about.
Do you remember what the recommendation was from this study in 2020? You were there, Gordon.
The study was never presented to us. I think we requested a copy of
We
it.
paid for it and didn't get it?
We did not.
Oh, no.
I mean, it was one of those, they got it. They conducted the study, but we have, we can get a copy of it
Yeah,
to share with you
I'd
all,
like to see that.
but it wasn't in our
You know,
hands.
the whole thing was sort of in a transitional period here, that,
They changed leaders and
exactly, and I'm like, PJ, I'm certainly in favor of the Advanced Tech Center, because of the changes in job requirements that have been evolving for the last really few years. It's so high tech, and the facilities over there, 1970s.
No, no
And-
doubt, but
and-
we still have them. I mean,
Yeah, and I would kind of commend them in a sense for what they're doing within the confines of what they had to work with. It's horrible. It's almost like a dungeon in a junkyard. They don't have anywhere to store anything. Furniture and devices sitting out in the hallway, and I mean it's just obsolete. But that's really another story. But as far as being in favor of, I certainly am. And I've said all along, it's the location and the funding are paramount, and we've got to have more to work on than what we've got. And so,
well, yeah, I mean,
and again, that's why we're sort of we're in between with the budget, because I mean, this came up before you developed your budget.
well, she
And,
submitted the request with the
yeah.
CIP,
But we.
and I couldn't fund something that large.
No, and I think we all understand that. That's.
Ideally,
certainly
we need to
understandable.
fold this into the debt model. And
I was gonna ask what the debt consultants might say about this.
Right.
And the other thing too is the ask for the facility, and Gordon, go back with me here, because I think in 2019, 2020, there was plans to take advantage of using the Virginia site to house an ATC. I think you'd gotten cooperation with the Technology Center up in South Boston, because the thing that we didn't have at that time was a site.
Mhm.
We had to identify and build a site, but in the meantime, we could do a program, we could do a new technology program and have it housed out of South Boston until we got up and running. That was something that was talked about in 2019, 2020,
Yeah.
and nobody pulled the trigger on it, I guess, and I don't know why.
No, we talked about that quite a bit. And as those talks continued, it became more apparent that the one in Virginia, they didn't need us. We needed them. so they weren't as warm and fuzzy after some of these talks as they were previously.
Well, and they
It was-
ended up getting the technology that
Well,
that could have
that's
been, we
where-
could have been part of it, but
that's where that
that's a done
tobacco
deal, but
money-
I'm just saying, you know, here we are, a year and a half, 2 years later, and Dr. Senegal's come at the last minute, putting this in the budget in this way, and I commend her, she's really whipped up people excited about the potential, and I agree, it is exciting and
Yeah.
we should do it. But what I'm not comfortable with is committing funds with an unknown. I
Agreed.
don't want pledges, I want solid plans. You might have a pledge for the land, you might have a pledge for this equipment, you might have this and that. It's a pledge. A pledge is easily forgotten or not acted upon. I can pledge $1,000 a year to Red Cross, but that doesn't necessarily mean I end up paying it. And so my concern is, you need to bring us a more solid plan. And I looked at the notes, and at first it was 21 to 28 million, now it's 30 million, or maybe it's gonna be 32 million, I'm like,
Yeah.
how can we make a decision at this point, other than we're interested, we wanna go forward, but we need a better plan, and it might not happen in this budget. It might be into next year's budget, but you know, we can set aside some funds for studies and plans and whatnot. We have discretionary funds should it come to that, correct?
Correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is not in the budget.
No.
So,
Correct.
I mean, so it's, what we're discussing here is the budget, but it's not in the budget. So
It's
it's
not
not, I
unless
mean,
you
I understand
wanna
what you're
add.
saying, but it's not something we need to, like, are we for it, against it, or what we're gonna do? It's just, but
Right.
it is something to kick around, but it's not in the budget. It's not part of what we're
Right,
looking
and
at today.
what I had tried to explain to Dr. Senegal and at our previous board meeting where she made that presentation is just because it's not in our operating budget for next year does not mean that we're not supportive of that project.
Because my understanding is there could be possibly some grants and things that are out there, but if we're not supportive as a county commissioners, she may not be able to get those funds.
Right.
And that's, that, you know, again, so,
I think
Where
we're
do
all
we
in
go?
support of it.
well, I
Yeah.
didn't say we won't. I'm just saying,
Huh?
She's bragging that she's got 3 votes already.
Yeah.
thank you for the comment, but, you know, I just,
Well, she did say
Um,
that.
anyway, that's my thought, is that we're, you know, again, is that, you know, we have to, again, if we're saying we're supportive of it, what is it gonna require from
Right.
the,
Mhm.
from the county, from us, so
Okay.
that she can proceed further, but, you
Okay.
know,
So it's-
we're not here to say that, though.
So I got one more item of inquiry, and since, you guys, sounds like it's not part of the budget, acknowledged, so thank you, Mr. Sims.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask the question, you have an existing 501c3 for the last 2 years for this purpose, that has not been utilized. What does PCC bring to the table that the 501c3 doesn't want? What does PCC think that they can do better? And, you know, I understand the flurry of activity. I was surprised last night when I came in and all, the topic was with the speakers what it was, so I had to throw my comments before the board. I appreciate you entertaining those, but you have an existing 501c3 capable of doing what she is proposing doing, and they, last time I spoke to somebody directly involved with that, it wasn't gonna cost the county anything, and so it concerns me twofold. Some of those very people that are putting forth the expenditure from the county and looking for commitment of county funds, fought against the 501c3 2 years ago. I think there should be some serious questions asked from the members of the dais up here. And lastly, I've got relatives in my house I'm gonna book, because this is the last topic I care about, that I know of. Is the finance director in here?
Amy's right there.
Right there.
Okay, good to meet you. I just wanted to make sure that, Ms. York wasn't fielding, you know, single-handedly all the finance department, because I would look to you as a citizen as being the expert. So thank you. All right. No more questions, and I appreciate your entertaining.
Thank you, Mr. Seif.
You're welcome.
My concerns are, why do we need to build something off campus if we're under-enrolled already? She told us at the meeting, her presentation, that she could incorporate multiple classes or multiple whatever, classes. Like I asked about the gunsmithing and the welding, I forget what else it was, I have it all written down, but it doesn't matter. There was multiple things that she said we can incorporate these other classes in with this existing class. So why, if that's the case, do we need to build such a structure off-site? Why can't we use what we have? And we need to really delve really deep into this before we move
I
forward.
think that's what her feasibility study answers, so let me get a copy
Okay.
of that to
Yeah,
you all,
yeah,
and that
that'd
might
be
help
great.
answer those
Yes,
questions.
Yes, that would really
Thank
help us
you.
out a lot.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to revenue projections, or are there any other lingering questions that you needed follow-up on? Okay, so, let's see if I can get this rolling again.
Is Kyle still with us? He's smiling.
Yep, he's still here, I can see him on the Zoom link. Kyle? I needed to do an update to our revenue projections. Are there other questions you wanna hit before we go there?
Well, only if you have already, if it's relevant to what you're about to talk about, I wanted to talk about the state reimbursement for inmates, why we're taking a hit on that. And I was wondering if that was actually part of Granville County's new jail, that they were gonna, take on some inmates from Person County. If that had any impact, and also talk about Pat's figures as well.
Okay, can you give me a page number that you're looking at?
I'm looking at start on page 34.
Yeah. I see that, let me find,
About 3/4 of the way down.
thanks. I see state reimbursement inmates. Okay, a loss of 150,000. Let me see, Amy, do you have any detail on that? I don't
No details
either.
other than I think that they just had a drop in inmate population.
If it's okay with you, Kyle, I'll do some
That would be a
inquiring
good
at the
thing.
sheriff's department and depends on your perspective. And get an answer to that $150,000 reduction there, on what's driving that. And tell me your other one again.
Page 35, it was the Pat's figures.
Oh, yeah. Catherine, do you have any insight on that as one of your
Right.
departments?
Is this due to moving things into different line items?
Yes,
Amy?
they've added a couple of new revenues, and so some of that has just been distributed to the new revenues.
Could you hear that, Kyle?
The,
Yeah, I did
Okay.
hear that.
the two revenues below the fares are
Mhm.
new revenues. The Pat's agency services and the Pat's no-shows, they're just reporting this, and distributing some of that revenue to these other new revenue lines.
Okay.
There's still a
But
reduction
there's
there.
still, yeah, there is still a reduction in those, fares, and I can't.
I mean, off the top of my head, I think we've seen less riders due to the pandemic.
I think that has something to do with it,
So we've
but-
estimated conservatively, but I can get some more clarification on that as well. Catherine?
We've also moved that Medicaid amount down to another line
Oh,
item, which
yeah.
is a major shift, so that's an increase of 183,000 in a line
I
item further
see.
down. So I think it
You're
has to
right.
do with just, they are trying to identify the types of revenues rather than lumping them all together. They divided them out into multiple line items so they can identify and track each revenue rather than having it lumped together. So I think that's what you're seeing there. I'm not sure what the net is off the top of my head, but there's a big reduction, but then there's a big increase further down.
Okay.
Can you see that line? A little,
do.
okay.
It's about flat, if you look at the changes between those revenues. The thing that we lost for Pat's is the road grant. We lost the road grant from the state because they are now shifting to providing them with some CARES money. We don't anticipate that road grant will come back, unfortunately, but, right now it's gone. So that's probably the big reduction in revenues for Pat's. The other is relatively flat, really, if you add all the lines together.
So did we lose supplementing funding for the PATS program? through the CARES Act?
No, just
No.
the rope grant was,
okay,
was
I got
a
you.
grant that
Replaced.
we got in addition to the funding that we normally get from the state.
Okay.
It was just a one-time grant?
It was, yeah, well, we got it every year.
Oh.
And so it was, the state says, well, we're providing you with CARES money, so we're going to take away this road grant. We're just not sure that it's coming back. Our hope is that it comes back after the CARES money dries up, but we're not sure.
But we would bring it as a budget amendment should we end up getting
Do you have
that.
to file for it every year?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we did have they did have a rate increase during the year.
They did.
And, so that
Before-
grant becomes even a bigger factor.
Yeah.
May I ask a question? Is there a breakout, I know not here, but somewhere where we can see cost per rider? We used to be able to look at the federal data, but they changed the way they put some of that data in there. So it was really not that clear to see, but things like cost per rider and the miles and stuff like that.
Is that in the
Do we as a
fees?
county ever look at that, or we?
Oh,
just-
yeah.
There is a breakdown on that, I've read it, yeah.
Well,
We can get that for you.
We
I don't-
always do.
We do have that.
I have a feeling it's probably pretty high.
Probably so.
Statewide
It's a
nation.
state
we're-
program, you're
We're
mandated
to have it.
to
Yeah.
provide this. Most
The
of your
state-
funding,
By Cartar,
No, the
No.
state.
Oh, no,
State.
No.
It's
Okay.
legislated.
but Cartar
Yeah.
runs it.
no, we run it ourselves. It's a local program.
Thank you.
I have a question, why are we having to advertise for PATS?
Well, are you looking at the revenues? That's the new
Yeah,
program. We
that's-
started
yeah.
Yeah.
taking in money to put advertisements on the vehicles to try to offset some of their
Side
costs.
the bus, they're advertising for
The
revenue.
signage.
It's not a cost, it's a
It's
it's
a
a
revenue.
So we
income.
can
Revenue.
we can do Charlie Plumber.
Yeah.
Yep,
Can we?
Your
Yep.
own
I'm
Pat-
retiring.
Your
But you have to
own-
pay for it.
Your own Pat's vehicle. There you go.
I do have a response from Sheriff Jones related to Commissioner Puryear's question. He said that the inmate revenues were down because of COVID, where we did not take in-state or federal inmates, trying to control our jail population and risks of COVID. So that's his explanation of why those numbers are so low.
Who was that from?
Sheriff Jones,
Thank you, Dewey. Hope you
always
heard me.
better when it comes from him, isn't it?
Absolutely. He's my pal.
All right, anything else before we move to revenues? The revenues, I think, is good news for you. We have some updated numbers because our estimates were based on March, and now that we've gotten pretty far along with the Board of ENR, and we're not seeing huge amounts of appeals, and we are seeing some growth still. So those numbers have changed, and I wanted to update you on what that looked like. What I have based the budget on was a property value of 4.67 billion. So that was your March number from the retreat that we had not updated until yesterday. And the new base number now is 4.72 billion. And so your revenues are going from 33 million to 33.13. No change at all in DMV revenues, those have stayed constant. But what this does is increase the value of a penny on the tax rate, so that is up a bit from what we had shown you. Now it's at 500,180 per penny. And then the other thing that this new revenue does is change your revenue neutral rate. So I wanted to update that as well. And your new revenue neutral rate is 0.6736. It was 0.68, I think, when I presented. There's the difference from your current and then the amount of loss should you go to revenue neutral. We're supposed to explain that you would lose $2.27 million on your property tax rate. So that is the freshest slice of revenues that we can share with you. We have not, I mean, we've only had one other reval since I've been here in 2013, and we did not have growth. So, yes, So this is something new for us to be able to update, your revenues based on growth.
Is there an anticipated revenue number for the utilities? I know we're like the highest tax base for utilities, and that's the last thing to
Yes.
come in. Do we have any idea how much it's gonna be?
We have no idea still. Russell says that is still our biggest unknown of state appraised values, and we get that number in September. So no preview.
What's it been in the past?
It's been all over the place. Some years it's up, some years it's been down. Incredibly unpredictable. Last year we had a bit of an increase. I think Russell explained that some of the equipment had been, old equipment and new were both on site at the time that it was valued. So there was a bit of an influx in value, so we won't have that. The old equipment has now left. We'll just have the new, which will have some depreciation on it. So I would gander a decrease, but we just don't know.
Where does the money go to when we sell off county property? Where does this go to the general fund?
What kind of property are you talking
The
about?
police,
The
sheriff,
vehicles?
sheriff's department, fire, EMS, all
The
these
surplus
that
vehicles. We ha-
yearly are put out here,
Yeah, we have a fleet fund,
fleet fund. Okay.
yes,
Okay.
where we try to use that to purchase new fleet
Roll it over.
vehicles and
Roll it
roll
over.
over, yes.
Gotcha.
Fleet management fund is on page 131. So I think that is all I had, in terms of the agenda. The next portion is really any adjustments that you want to make. We have a little calculator tool that we project so you can try and see the impact of any additions or deletions as we go. And then we'll bring that back at your next work session and sort of show you where we're at and, receive any direction from the board. So I think that's where we are now, unless there are further questions you'd like us to try to tackle for you.
I do have one question. We're looking at hiring a new Department of Social Services employee. What's the
Yeah.
position to be held?
I have a slide on that too, just in case that was asked. So they requested 5 positions. I think I'm recommending 1 position in there. It is on the income maintenance side. They're calling it a quality assurance analyst. And I can pull a description of that, from them, but this is basically somebody who is making sure that reports are being filed, timely and accurately, and training is being provided to employees, that sort of thing.
That, to my understanding, is supposed to be your program manager's job, is to make sure the training is ongoing and that the reports and whatnot are done on time.
Okay,
Why do they need another person for the 2 program managers when that's supposedly, my understanding, is under their responsibility?
let me go grab the DSS budget off my desk. It's in a huge notebook, and I can get a better, do you have it? I can get a better explanation of that,
You pass
sure.
that down.
Thank you. So he has a tab for positions. If I can find that. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna read what he submitted to us about the explanation of duties and responsibilities. Responsible for ensuring the quality of income maintenance case reviews for food and nutrition, special assistance, health choice, medical assistance, which are administered by DSS. Work includes conducting an in-depth review and evaluation of cases monthly, training new staff, providing technical assistance to income maintenance staff on problem areas, which are reflected by error trends detected during the case review process, troubleshooting and resolving problematic NC-FAST issues, and updating workers on policy and NC-FAST functionality changes and how the 2 work together. And there's a little bit more information here about what they would be doing. And and it looks like the portion of this position that is county funding is 30%. The state and grant funded is 70%. And Carlton says that the position will help make sure that we do. It has paybacks for Medicaid and food stamps, and monthly Medicaid reports, audits, that sort of thing. So I think we've captured it, but I did want to point out that there's a 30% funding for the county, so our share of the position is about $12,200. So we get reimbursed through the state for 70% of the position.
Who is handling that, those duties at this time? Have any idea?
Let me ask.
It's supposed to be the program managers.
Supervisors is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Current supervisors.
Huh?
Current supervisors are handling the duties now.
Right. They're currently handling, but I don't think that's what they're supposed to be doing, my understanding. Anyway, I want to request a 2-minute break. Sorry, I drank a bunch of water, I need a break.
Yeah,
Would you like me to have Carlton join us while we take a break? Would that be helpful? Or are we okay with the explanation?
Not to me, because I already know, I mean, because I'm on the DSS board and I go to the meetings,
Okay.
I kinda know, having talked to them, so, I know what the current
Sure.
staff's responsibilities are supposed to be. Whether or not they're
Yes.
being handled, I can't say.
Yeah, he says that they're overwhelmed.
Is 10 minutes enough for you?
No, 2 minutes.
10?
2.
What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Consensus?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
All right, we'll take a 10-minute
Commissioner
break.
Pryor, we're taking a
2-minute break.
minute break.
Okay. Wow, where's the clock on the wall?
I got a phone. Let's put it
Yeah,
on
that time,
timer.
that's what I'm talking about, yeah. I'm having complaints already on the Morgan Street redesign.
Already?
Oh, yeah. I had
According to
before I got
Brooks,
home last night.
I read, well, I'm sure.
Commissioners, where would you like to go from here? Are there any adjustments you wanna make?
Question, if we don't approve any of these positions, can we do it later in the year? Or does it have to be now for, I mean, this is our only choice for this year, or can we
No, we could.
change it? We can add if it, upon further investigation, as we're looking at
Yes.
things and we see a real need that, yeah, we should go ahead and do that, we can do it later in the year if we don't decide now.
Yes.
Okay,
So any changes to positions has to come before the county commissioners
Mhm.
for approval. There are no positions that would be added without
right,
the board
right,
approval.
okay.
But yes, you can add positions in the middle of the year. You would
It's
just
just that if
take
we
your.
add a position, how do we, if we decided then it was a mistake, how do we end a position? How do we delete a position then, if?
Right, you would, I mean, it's a
What,
little bit
Gordon?
tricky, but
Yeah, I agree with that. At the same time, you could put them in there and fill those positions mid-year. I mean, there's several different ways of.
you have the flexibility to fund them for half a year, 9 months, 12 months.
Okay,
You know, we can bring them back later on, and then we would sort of prorate the costs. So if we bring it back in the middle of the year and it's outside of the budget process, it would take an appropriation of your fund balance,
right,
most likely, unless you use contingency or something else. But you would have to take, make an appropriation for those funds into whatever department the position would be funded.
so if we put it in a contingency fund and we didn't use it, could that come back out to the general fund? Is that how it works, or does it?
At
I'm
the end
sorry.
of the year, I mean,
doesn't-
even if you put it in a departmental budget and they didn't
Mhm.
hire the position, at the end of the year, those funds would revert to your fund balance
Okay.
when we close out the fiscal year.
I do have another question. Are there probationary periods for new hires?
Yes.
What is the time frame?
Department heads have 12 months and regular employees have a 9-month probationary period.
9 months?
9 months, yes. So you're essentially an at-will employee during that time, can be dismissed without cause.
Senior code enforcer, that would be another Dale position or,
It would be working under Dale. He's the inspections director.
yeah, right. But
Um,
the duties are the same, aren't they? Except supervision.
Their supervision piece is not quite the same, but it is very similar to his. He's just not.
Well,
Was that factored into the budget?
Yes.
All this has been factored into the budget already,
Yes.
so it's nothing.
Right
it's
now-
in the budget where we're at.
Yeah, these are the positions that I'm recommending. There's another page I could show you that was the ones that I didn't recommend.
Right.
But yeah, the inspection senior code enforcement has already been advertised along with the environmental health specialist. We were hoping to get some quality applicants and get them started.
Mhm.
I think I was talking to HR today, we had over 1,300 views of the inspections position with right now no applicants.
Wow.
Yeah.
oddly strange as I was walking to my truck to come here today and totally, out of the wild blue, a person stopped by and they just sold the house and they're moving. But he started talking about inspections and the, horrible situation that he ran into regarding to what he's planning to do in the future.
I'm sorry to hear
And
that.
it's in the process, so it's still ongoing and it needs attention, and I think, we're working on that through your express plan, but that's still not a done deal, I hope. But, there's a need there.
Sure.
Would this solve the issue totally? Probably not. Somewhat, 50%, I don't know.
I mean,
But
it's a
it's
combination of changes that we're trying to make to address it from multiple angles. One being more people, two being the software,
I think it's a huge investment. Sometimes people aren't the total answer, but in this case, it probably is. But, it is a major problem in Person County. I'm not saying other counties don't have the same issues, but, certainly we need to address and, take a little bite of horns and make things happen.
We are trying to do
Because
that.
if we want growth, I don't care if it's residential or commercial, we've got to be,
Proactive.
proactive and flexible and able to do it regardless of time. Sometimes it might require
Sure.
people staying over a half an hour, whatever.
Oh, yeah, we've got lots of overtime over
Well,
there.
What
I don't
is
care
the-
about the
That's
overtime, I
on the
never work for
regular.
overtime. So,
Well, I'm just saying, working additional hours.
yeah,
They're
so.
not all being compensated with overtime. We
So-
talked about, also, I wanted to mention the efficiency training that we could offer for our developmental services folks. So we are putting our heads together to look at some options. There's one that's that the NC State provides, where we might be able to bring in some trainers to help advance
Find out where the clogs are,
Yep.
because we have clogs in the pipe, we need
and
to clear
study
them
the
out.
whole process.
And
Yeah.
also, not just planning, but the departments that work together, they're not
Yeah.
communicating well together, and I think that's part of the efficiency, is the departments.
Yeah.
And this goes back to that survey from 2018 that you sent. The one big takeaway I got is
yeah.
departments aren't working well together.
Okay.
And that's something that I pulled out of multiple pages of that report when I reviewed it again this morning, and I thought, that's interesting. So if we could find a way without spending a lot of money and getting some
Sure.
efficiency people in here to help us streamline things, that might help this in addition to, we've gotta get that software functioning for everybody. That's-
So this is a total of, what, 6 positions? And you
Yes.
had, requests for how many?
Let me look.
13, I think.
I think it was
Fif-
13, but I
13,
wanna double
not
check
15,
that.
Okay.
Right. There were 11 requested, 6 are recommended. The ones that weren't recommended were in health and DSS.
Okay, in health, would that have been dealing with environmental issues?
No,
Would
it was a
have been-
community health
okay,
tech,
all right, okay.
but we do have the environmental health specialist funded as a new position. That one is recommended.
Okay. Well, I don't know what your feel is at this point, leave it. We're gonna meet again Thursday.
We're gonna meet again on Thursday if we need to.
I don't know if you have a big hang up, is that right? Yes, sir.
I do have one more question.
Sure.
Total inspectors we have are 3 or 4?
3, I think.
3 right now,
3.
right? There's 5 people total over there with 2
Yes.
technician.
3 who are inspectors, certified inspectors.
Yep.
2 who are at the level 1, the lower level certifications, and then Dale who has full certifications.
Have the 2 that are not at level 2 been invited to pursue level 1?
Higher level certifications, yes.
Are they interested?
There is one who is working on some higher level certifications currently.
We do incentivize, we have a certification policy that awards a 1.5% pay increase for each certification obtained. And Dale and I talked about whether we wanted to consider updating that to maybe, make it a little
I think it's a good option.
more robust, so that's something we're looking
It's a good
at.
option.
Is it one that's?
Give more reason to
Money is
pursue.
an extreme motivator.
Absolutely.
Is the one that isn't involved, or seeking near retirement?
I'm not sure.
He's a year younger than me, so probably.
Yeah, which is immaterial at this point, just a thought.
And
Okay.
Gordon, your question
I'm
on,
sorry.
when we talk about these positions, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that, certainly we can come back, our next meeting we'll do that, and say there's this one I don't wanna do, or this one I don't wanna do. For me, I'm okay with what we got up there, but if we need to discuss that, we certainly can discuss it
Oh, yeah.
as
Yeah,
county commissioners,
that's-
but for me, I'm okay with what's up there, but if we wanna come back and
Because
make some changes, I mean, there's no
Now's the
problem.
time.
I'd like
now and
listening-
Thursday.
Listening to everybody.
Okay. What was your next?
I just had that one prepared in case you wanted to talk about positions, and I also had vehicles. These are just things that typically we look at in terms of making tweaks or adjustments, but,
I'm surprised
just
with
how it goes.
the hours we had to work with EMS and the overtime they've had to work, that there wasn't a request for,
There was,
oh, okay.
and we were able to use the CARES funding to purchase 3 vehicles for EMS.
Okay.
I think it was 3. We blew a transmission on one because it was overused. So we were able to replace that. We did a remount of an ambulance, and were able to buy both the chassis and.
What about staffing? I mean, is he good with staffing? I mean, one time I thought we were, I remember
it
a
was-
while back, he was
Yep.
asking for us to,
And we did. We added a whole new
Incentives.
shift. I think a year ago. We did it in 2 phases. It takes 8 people to provide a whole shift.
right.
So we did do that within the last 2 years.
Over 2 years,
Yeah.
Just looking at what you can do to reduce
What's the county's, expense for the 2 PATS vans?
Let me see if I can pull that real quick. Just give me a second. I'll look that up. Do you, either of you have that? What is our share of the vehicle purchase? Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, he was taking vehicles, that were out of service, selling those and putting those, he's putting it towards these vans.
Yep,
So he's,
that's right.
yeah,
Oh, you're on that board. I forgot.
yeah.
There we go. Oops, I think I messed up my mic. All right.
Our portion is 6,600 each for those vans.
Thank you.
Is that, so you said 6,600 each?
Yep.
Kyle, did you hear me when I said he was taking the vans out of service, that he's taking it out and was selling those, and that was going back in towards these vans?
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure you heard me.
And the vehicle for inspections, would that be for the new person?
It is for the new person.
So if you, okay.
Yep.
Well, any and all of those that are being replaced, they go back into the sale pool anyway, don't they?
Yes. All of them are replacement except for the inspections one.
Are we contracted with somebody on fleet management for purchasing, or do we just go out and bid?
We are able to use a state contract price, or we're able to negotiate ourselves. And
Okay.
so we usually present the state and see if they'll beat it. Other questions?
Person Industries. I think I would like the department head to come in and explain to us, maybe at our next meeting, just
Yeah.
kind of explain to us
What's happening?
what's happening over there, because
Great.
this is one of those things that everybody says, well, it's a great thing, but it costs a lot of money. I wanna see, where they are. It's been a few months.
Yep.
I would like to see if she could come in and chat with us about their budget.
I'm
That'd
sure
be
she'd be
great.
happy to do that.
Okay, great.
Yep.
It was my understanding of recent months to a year that they were making money there now.
Well, I don't know with COVID, I think that's changed a lot of things.
It likely did, it has.
It's got the potential, but the other thing
Yeah.
too is, did we ever find out about the state that was looking for property?
We did the vocational rehabilitation services that they were trying to put here.
Okay.
And Amanda, I had sent it to Amanda to follow up with them, so she was gonna ask exactly what services, that they were hoping to bring here, but I had not heard back. It was news to everybody that they were putting a facility here.
Yeah, I mean, we saw an
Sorry.
ad in the paper, I called Hardy, I said, did you know about this?
So we did not know.
The
I mean,
state was looking for office space here in the county, and it was a pretty substantial amount.
Yep.
When's the lease up at Person Industries on that again?
I think I have 3 years left. 2024. 2024. Yes.
Have we started a long-term plan on what we're gonna do next with this program?
Well,
As far as
that's in the
continued
budget
lease?
this year, is a feasibility study for PI to merge the
Alright.
operations on the boulevard with the recycling facility and
Okay.
put them under one roof.
One roof.
And then we're also doing, as part of that, an efficiency study to make sure that we're utilizing the space as well as the equipment for recycling that's getting aged. So we're hoping to get some updates on that as well. So all of that is part of that
Okay.
study.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any, new money, bits and
Yes.
pieces here and there that we could do something else with if we need to?
So with the adjustments in the revenue, we do have, some new revenue there. Could either build your fund balance or you could spend it. That's $365,983.
I'm sorry?
That is the adjustments of the new revenue
Uh-huh.
from Russell. It would net you about $365,983 because 1 penny now is worth more.
Mhm.
More, yeah.
Yeah.
What, I've read it, but what are you budgeting for economic development, a catalyst fund, or
Yeah.
however you term it?
So my breakdown is, let me find that on here. We have, and let me find it in here so we can look at that. Do you have that page number? Economic Catalyst Fund. Thank you, 195.
You said to bring back.
Yep. Oops, 919. Okay. So in here we have, let's see, my breakdown looked like 270,000 was for designated incentive payments. I had 890,000 for discretionary development needs, which that broke down a little further. I have 250,000 as a general fund contribution this year, and then 640,000 of fund balance already in the Economic Catalyst Fund.
So what are the incidental, incentives, what do they cover?
Yep.
Can be paid out of that?
So if you look on 196,
Right.
that's showing you where the incentives are. Are you
Right.
asking about that first one, 890,000? Oh, that is discretionary, so we just have that for them to use for any sort of needs that they might come up with. Discretionary, not tied to a incentive contract.
Okay.
This is something that EDC, PCBIC group has been asking for, is just having some money that they can work with to,
What can they legally use it for? It's not entertaining, whining and dining, marketing, that kind of stuff. It has to be a physical study or something, right? It's gotta be something
Right.
related to a specific project.
right.
It can't be just,
It could be, marketing materials of the mega site. It could be, grading at the mega site. But we don't use it for whining and dining, no.
we don't have the ability to do so, no.
Buy your own. Well, I don't know if we wanna entertain the idea of exact numbers, but if we could do something to improve that a little bit. I don't know what's coming in the way of the 2 federal pots of money that's coming to the state. The buzzwords are economic development and broadband, but if we
The buzzwords are water and sewer and
water and
broadband.
sewer, yeah, okay. Well, I tie water and sewer to economic development, okay,
Sure,
and we're
but
fine.
just wanna be
But
clear that
I don't
can't
know
do
if we
this.
wanna consider, and we don't have to decide anything today, but, what we can do to enhance broadband. And I know we'll use that money when it comes, if and when, I don't know how much. And it'll have all the strings attached, but, if there's anything there, cause that's a priority. In the times that we're living in, it's a priority that pretty much encompasses everything we're talking about here today. If we can't have connectivity, we aren't gonna have growth. More and more people are working from home. We have more and more complaints about providers and the lack of, and whatever we need to do as a county, to the extent that we can, I think we need to do. So, part of that 365, 366, maybe think about a little bit, brainstorm there for Thursday and see what we can do. That's really, in the big scheme of things, not a lot of money. But if there are small holes that we can backfill with part of this money for a broadband, then certainly.
So the big pot of money that we're slated to get, the 7.7, is what I was saying, the buzzwords of broadband and water and sewer infrastructure projects. Those are obvious uses for that. That money will come later. We talked about coming back to you all with a plan for using that money later. And that's really not part of this
Oh, yeah.
budget.
No, it's not part of your budget at all, but it's something to be considered as time goes forward. No, I wouldn't want us to put it in there and not use the other money properly, so. But no, that's good. I understand.
Okay.
We're years down the road on that.
Well, we also fortuitously did the study with the ECC, I always say it, I can never remember. ECC Technologies is doing the broadband study for us, which is updating the coverage maps, getting a better sense of how we fill in some of those gaps. So I feel like we're gonna be well poised to make some investments on that final stretch of coverage and access to services once we get that study, which will be later this summer, early fall. So that will also help if we wanna make an investment in broadband.
Who's
You
doing this
can have-
study?
ECC Technologies, we heard from them a couple of meetings ago, and they were updating the study that had previously been done so that we know exactly how to invest and get the last
I remember.
bit of access.
Here's the thing, you can have the greatest broadband coverage in the world, but if you don't have the speed, you might as well not even have the coverage.
Sure.
I mean, you can have 10 megabits, and if you've got 3 or 4 devices on your house, in your house that are using that broadband, you can get throttled down to 0.5 of megabytes, just like that. And the carriers, even the guy with River Street or whoever, CenturyLink has broadband capability they can sell them, but they won't sell them more broadband width. So this is really it's about the companies not really providing what they have because they want money for it. And I'm like, you can see the map when CenturyLink puts their map up, we're all over the county, it's all green, they've got it everywhere. It is, but they don't have the speed. So it's not the coverage, it's the accessibility to that coverage, which is the big key. And you're gonna need a minimum of 10 to 15 megs for anybody to work from home, have school from home, anything. And if you're only getting 5 or less, you might as almost well not have it. And that's, to me, is the issue. You can just blow smoke up my skirt all day long about the great coverage you've got, but you've got no service in that coverage
Well,
area.
that was a question I asked, I think it was a guy on a Zoom from CenturyLink, what's this number, you talked about,
Yeah.
the numbers, but what is it? Is it 200?
Well, the state's new goal is 100.
Oh, it is, huh?
That is
Okay.
what the state of North
Right, okay.
Carolina would like to see. So we are looking at speeds as part of our study. The state of North Carolina
Mhm.
is trying to get a better understanding of the speeds that are out there and update their maps.
Right.
So once this legislation goes through the process at the state level, hopefully we are going to know how we can utilize these federal funds, because our state legislature is going to make some decisions that will impact how we can use those funds.
Can you look at satellite coverage, because I have now satellite coverage, and I'll tell you what, I blew through 60 megabytes of data in 15 days with a new satellite service. It's got 35 to 45 megs of download. It's super fast, but I've got 3 computers, 2 cell phones, a Roku, and something else, and it eats data like that.
And that is.
And I think, you know, but the satellite is clear, fast, and if you use your data, they can turn on more data if you need it, but the problem is it's costly. It's
That's
too,
an issue countywide, I mean,
yeah, it's 2 times as expensive as your DSL. But it works fabulous, and I don't spend hours on the phone with CenturyLink and their recordings. I have to tell you, what, it's a, you know, I work from home. I've worked from home for 10 or 15 years now. I need that capability. I can't spend 3 hours a day with my technology being down. That's just not cost effective, and they're not helping. There's no customer service. They don't care.
I agree.
They don't care, and
Bottom line is money.
and we're paying for it. I'm like, okay, we need more alternatives. If the federal government's gonna be bringing money in, I think, what's his name? Somebody said Elon Musk's satellites. Some people are already using them in the county now. They've got some satellite.
They receive some federal grants for Person County, so.
That would be
they
so
are
helpful to
coming.
people.
They're in Rougemont already, according to their maps.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
So there's definitely some possibilities here, and we do know the focus needs to be on speed.
Speed.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's right.
It's beyond looking at coverage, it's the speeds that are currently available.
Debt that we paid off is another subject. Did we clear some debt this
We paid off
20
we're paying off 2 debts this year.
2021?
We paid off the courthouse debt that we had, that one, the last payment was in February. And then the 2006 roofing paving project, we made our last payment on June 1st. So we dropped 2 debts this year.
Good. Ready to start some new.
I think we're well poised to, you know, consider a large financing for schools and PCC if that's, you know, what the board would like to do.
You mentioned that, I see the letter from the schools, I mean, is there any comment on that?
I don't think so. No, that was just the, you know, their formal
Pretty
request
much.
to the board.
And you have funded that in your budget anyway.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else we need to do at this point then? Mr. Per-Year?
No, sir.
Okay. Anyone else?
Initially, the lottery funds, my memory serves me well, it was for like this little, what do you call it, preschool?
Pearl Bradshaw?
Pearl
So
Bradshaw.
are we using these lottery funds across the school systems now? The whole county, instead of just,
Oh, yeah.
We are?
They have 11 complexes, so to speak.
so it's not just with preschool now?
no.
Okay, but initially, that's the way it started, correct?
Well, they have discretion over how, which projects they decide to fund in which order, but they can use it for any of their
The
facilities.
Board of Education,
Yes.
okay.
And we've used it for many, many school projects.
Yeah, lots.
Lottery has
Painting.
helped fund a lot of that.
Yeah.
We have
Okay.
schools that are obviously aging out
Yes.
and enrollment's down. I know that I've heard in past years, we've talked about combining or, you know, making a plan on making the school system more up to date and functional. Is there any plan for that?
Is that part of their audit?
Well, they did a facilities audit / feasibility study, I think we've called it a number of things, and tried to determine their most immediate needs, and that's what we're trying to fund for them, is some updates to their facilities. With that 10 million that we would do about 4 times, so it's a $40 million project we would extend over 10 years, I think we're looking at. And I think part of that is for the Board of Education to make some decisions about schools consolidating, but that's not something that the county commissioners are.
Okay, so that's the school board then, okay.
That is.
So will we still have them with us Friday?
No, we have not rescheduled a joint meeting
Okay.
with the schools.
Okay.
If that's something the board would like to do, we can go back to the drawing board on dates.
I think we need to.
So we were in recess when we came back.
Yes.
We're gonna be in recess again for Thursday, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And Thursday, we're slated for 10 o'clock. Is that still the time that you all would like to meet, or do we need to make any adjustment on that?
I thought it was 8 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
It's
Is-
10 o'clock.
We should make good time, I would think. I mean, we don't, there's maybe a few items to bring up, but for the most part, what we've gone through, I mean, I haven't, unless somebody comes up with a bunch of stuff, we should make good time.
Yeah.
The only thing I've
Yeah.
got on our
Yeah.
agenda so far is bringing Person Industries
Right.
back for discussion with them.
I guess now's the time, if there's anybody else you wanna bring in,
Yeah,
have
let me
them come
know.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
So will we be voting heads up or heads down next commissioner meeting on the budget?
You are welcome to do that, but our budget calendar has you coming back on the 21st of June
Right.
during your board meeting
Mhm.
to approve,
That's what I
officially
meant. Our
approve
next-
the budget.
Our next official meeting, the
Yeah.
public meeting is this, that's when we're gonna actually take a formal vote.
You can do it at any meeting. This
Oh,
is an
you could-
official meeting as
You
well,
could do it
but
Thursday.
Oh.
you
Yeah.
could.
If everybody's happy and everybody's satisfied and
Oh.
we wanna do that?
You can do that.
You
We
can do
we
that.
typically bring back a budget ordinance that you adopt, and that makes it official. And we'll need some time after Thursday to reflect any changes that you've made to the budget, so that the ordinance captures those adjustments. So you can adopt it in theory, but we'll still bring back an ordinance on the 21st for adoption to make it official.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
My reasoning for having the Board of Education meeting is, I have a major concern with the fleet of buses that we use in the county. And you don't see but 3 or 4, 5 children per bus. I would love to consolidate, cause most of these drivers have a teacher aide position, or they work in the cafeteria, or they're a janitor, they have another job within the school system. If we could deplete, just say, 1/10 of the fleet.
Well, that goes back to their mandates, to provide transportation.
Yeah,
X number
I
of
mean,
miles you gotta cover regardless of the number of kids that.
X amount of miles
That's a
per
state
kid.
mandate.
Yeah,
Oh,
you've
Jesus
got to
Christ.
do it. Now, other schools don't have that
Handcuffed
mandate,
everywhere.
but
You-
along
We
that.
serve at the pleasure of the state.
Oh, yeah, well, along that line too.
This is just for show.
When we approve, the school's budget for, their funding except capital, this, the kids in all those schools get the same amount of money per child that
Right,
Person County
right,
does.
right.
They don't have to run buses. It's not a mandate.
Okay.
So, and there's a lot of things, as you're saying, we work at the pleasure of the state, we're mandated and they aren't. And
Yeah.
buses is one, and yes, I saw them, I see them all the time.
Yeah.
A big bus with a few
A
kids.
lot of money,
Uh,
2 or 3
but
kids.
They have their mandate, and they must have a fleet of buses, to run X number of miles, and, it's a constant adjustment.
Is it
every-
number of miles, is it based on the population of school children, or is it just number of miles in general?
Well, no, they intersect, because if you've got a kid here and the next one is 10 miles down the road, you gotta go get him. Now,
Mhm.
last year, that'd have been 5 miles down the road, so they've got to adjust.
So where are the
Yeah.
kids, they map out where the kids are, where their enrollment, their addresses, and then they
And
figure
through
out the
their,
busing.
student information and and the TIMS, I believe they call it, Transportation Information, they plot that. I mean, it's down to a fine science with, computer mapping, GIS and this sort of thing. But
There's no way around that, say, I mean, 'cause I know, like, I've got neighbors, their kids are in the public school, but they drive them and pick them up, they never ride the bus, so is there any way to figure out who's opting out of riding the
I
bus?
don't have a clue. I don't.
It's
Well,
really
the
not in
other
our
thing
purview,
you
but
run
I
into
can
is
find
that
out.
they may opt out, but then all of a sudden they gotta go back to, in other words, they said, well, I'm not gonna drive.
Well, then
I mean,
they
there's-
gotta opt
there's
back in, they have to be responsible parents.
No, I mean, let's say today I'm having my son ride the bus, but tomorrow I'm not. I mean, so, I'm picking him up or whatever, so I mean, you can't, I don't think you can sit there and say, well, you've said you're going,
No,
to pick
that's-
your kids up, every day, but you can't, it just things work out.
I'm just
Things-
saying, there are parents that refuse to have their children ride public buses, they just do. And so
Absolutely, I
those
can see that.
parents that are like that, they need to opt out, and if they change their mind, then they have to opt in, that's all I'm saying, but
No.
I am not in charge of this, so.
Well,
None of us are.
and
So
we-
I'm
Neither of us
wasting
are.
everybody's time right now.
And we aren't,
Neither of us are.
we just, okay, do we have,
Do we have to make a motion?
motion to
We're good.
recess?
Motion to recess
Recess.
Motion to
To
recess till
Thursday at 10
Thursday,
o'clock.
10 o'clock. Same place,
Same place, if it
Same
works for
place,
you all.
different time,
different time.
Different time.
10
All in
o'clock,
favor,
instead of
say
8 o'clock.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle.
Need to make myself a note and put on the refrigerator, 10 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll remind y'all.
Alright.
Thank you.
Can I have my DSS budget back, Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Just because I
need to swipe
I
that.
need that one, yeah.
Yep, I've got that too. Thank you.
Boy.